Um, the new Prime Minister of England, his name is Keir, Keir Starmer. He his party just took over, and they have a very funny system in the UK. They have an election, and the next day they transfer the government. They just do it. They don't wait 3 months, 4 months. It's sort of uh, primitive, I guess. I mean, they avoid all the fun we have. In any event, so his party elected Labor, came into power, and now we're beginning, because frankly, I'd never heard of this man before. Um, we're beginning to hear about him. He observes the Sabbath, supports Israel, vows to fight anti-Semitism. This is the Prime Minister of the UK, which isn't bad, right? This good news. His wife is Jewish. They're raising their kids as Jews. Friday night dinner is sacrosanct in the home of the British Prime Minister. I like that. This is the first time ever in the UK that a practicing Jewish family has inhabited 10 Downing Street, which is nice. Friends call his wife Lady Vic. She's intensely private, avoids all press conferences, which is why no one heard about this. They are fanatical about maintaining their teenage children's privacy, names, and so forth. The new Prime Minister of the UK has called Shabbat a rock in the week, describing Friday night dinners, challah, and kiddush. They belong to a liberal, which is Reform synagogue in St. John's Wood in London. And it's very important because politics, such a lovely game, leaders of the Conservative Party during the election period attacked him as only being a part-time prime minister. If you can't work Friday evening and you've got to be with your family, then you shouldn't be prime minister. But as it turns out, he is prime minister, and he will be spending time with his family. They won a very big victory. So that's it for the good news. Huh? That's not bad. No, that's not bad. Now, who is winning in the...
Rabbi, can I just say a word about that?
Yes,
he himself is an atheist.
Yes. So, I mean, that's fine. Some of my best friends are atheists. He is not, if you will, a practicing Christian. But he's certainly not Jewish. And I like everything about him. So, okay. They're trying to figure out, if elections are held in Israel, who would come out on top. I was actually shocked by the latest report that the party likely to come out with the most mandates, the most seats in the 120-seat Knesset is a right-wing party led by Naftali Bennett, who was Prime Minister of Israel. And quite frankly, in terms of right-wing candidates, he's a fairly acceptable serious conservative. He's not crazy. So he is leading this called this right-wing party, and in it there is the former head of Mossad, Avigdor Lieberman, the head of the Russian Jewish community in Israel, Gideon Sa'ar. If the elections were held now, Naftali Bennett would be given the chance to form the new government. According to the poll, national unity, led by Benny Gantz, would get 25 seats. Likud, headed by Bibi, would get 21 seats. Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid would get 13. Why is this interesting? There doesn't seem to be any basis by which Netanyahu, if the election were held today, could get enough ultra right-wing Orthodox and whatever support to become prime minister. So if the election were held now, he would be out. What also is interesting is that there is a new political party. There always is in Israel. And it's called, here's a clever name, the Democrats. Or if you prefer the Hebrew, Democratim. The Democratim would receive 9 seats. Who are they? The old Labor Party and the left-wing Meretz have joined together. They are led by a man named Yair Golan. I want to say, remember his name because he's a player. He is a player, but it's going to take time. In the last election, the Labor leader refused to blend votes with Meretz, the left wing. So neither one of them got any power. And then the leader of Labor was kicked out. It was one of those really bright, insightful things. Oh, if I combine with my left-wing buddies, we can have an office, a seat, some places in government. And he said, no, I'm going to maintain the purity of my position, and they got nothing. Now they are combined, maybe 9 mandates. I'm interested in this because we have a Reform rabbi who was a major vote getter in the Labor Party. If Labor would not link with Meretz, he would be out of Knesset. Now that they're going to be together, that's a good thing. Does this mean anything? I don't think an election is coming soon. Certainly with these kinds of projections, Bibi is not interested in having elections. So the terrible thought is that we may be stuck with the status quo. In for happy news. How many of you like reggae? Reggae? Yeah, oh, Harvey can take it or leave it. Got a few okay. Last week, a young man became a bar mitzvah in Jamaica. His name is Abraham Marley. He's the grandson of Bob Marley. The theme of his bar mitzvah was get up, stand up, which granddaddy had a lot to do with. And that was kind of fun. Ziggy Marley, Abraham's proud father, put a picture of the bar mitzvah boy, the talit, the whole thing on Instagram. And then you hear this really nice thought, and I quote, I share this photo of Abraham and I from his celebration of becoming a man according to the ancient tradition. No name. According to the ancient tradition, he has reached that age of responsibility and change. Okay, kind of anonymous. And then Ziggy signed off with JAH. Yah, one of the ways the Jamaicans refer to God. So, in any event, we now have another bar mitzvah boy, someone with a strong musical background. Who knows where that will go? Next, this one really grabs me. An El Al passenger got sick, seriously ill, and the plane had to make an emergency landing in Turkey. How do you think that went? So they did the landing, and according to international agreement, the patient and the family were taken off the airplane and taken to hospital. But there's a small problem. The plane had gone off its route. It needed to be refueled before it took off again. And the Turk said, you won't refuel on our territory. And so they had to fly off to Rhodes to refuel and then complete their journey. That's in the category of petty, 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 right? That's really nice.
Especially where they're going to get paid for this fuel.
Of course.
Why be so picky rather than nasty?
Some people are nasty without a good reason. I know that this group would not understand that, but there are some people who are just nasty. Okay. In New York, anti-Semitic incidents are rising rapidly. A therapist, Jewish therapist, working with a school-age kid, the kid reported to her that she was riding with her father in a car and a passerby blocked the car and started shouting anti-Semitic comments at the car. The therapist was astonished by this. And she began promoting something which I now have the privilege of promoting here. If you are Jewish and you are a woman, you should be involved in self-defense classes. And I don't know about Wilshire. I don't know if they have one. Have you heard of the name Krav Magal?
Yes,
Maga?
that's the Israeli, self-defense.
Yeah, Krav Magal. Krav means to draw near, and Maga means to touch. It is a form of self-defense. Self-defense classes in New York City are multiplying like mad.
Mhm.
People are signing up and they are seeking security and a way to respond. Some of the mothers involved, and again, this is a quote, instead of taking our kids to soccer, we are taking them to Krav Maga. So more important than soccer for these mothers is an answer to the world around us. Any of you interested? Any of you? Anyone? Has anyone taken Krav Maga? No? I think our daughter did. I think Aviva did at a certain point. It's apparently very effective. So, in an age of declining civility and a breakdown of law and order, Susie, learn self-defense. Okay? Okay. Now we get into something a little bit less pleasant. The ADL issued report cards on levels of anti-Semitism in their campuses. Colleges were evaluated for levels of anti-Semitism. Stanford, a well-known local college, flunked. The grade that ADL gave Stanford, one of the great schools in the country, is an F. The school petitioned for a review, and ADL raised their grade. And you know how that is if you can get a professor to raise a grade, that's a good thing, to D. So now Stanford is very proud to own a D in handling anti-Semitism. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Mostly because I threw a page away. With the college anti-Semitism business, if you want to remember, if you care to, we are almost near the beginning of the next semester. Summer vacation is like halfway over, and what's going to happen in the fall? What's going to happen in our schools? This one stopped me, and it needs some thought. The problem that Joe Biden is having at one level is connected to the Middle East. What's going to happen if Joe Biden's policies in the Middle East lead to an unstoppable demand for him to step down. What's going to happen in this country? What's going to happen with the anti-Semites, pro-Palestinians, whatever? And I don't know the answer to that. But we are very, very close to having to confront that. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on how this thing is playing out?
We need to be frightened.
Pardon?
We need to be frightened.
What do you mean, and of what?
I think of what the potentials of what can happen to this country, what we can lose, what can happen to people if they're confronted. I think that's a lot we have to think about and attempt to do whatever we could do where the elections are coming up.
Thank you.
And on another note, our daughter
Okay.
was telling us last week that from many of the school districts in Scottsdale and Phoenix, they received letters with the kids' registration packet and everything, with school starting second week in August.
Right.
That kids are to not wear any religious identification at all.
Really?
Yes, which has never happened before. The parents or the PTO groups or whatever they are this week are fighting it tremendously. Why take away our children's choices of what they want to wear?
Does that mean that children can't wear crosses either?
Exactly. And I think that's the school district's possible way of fighting anti-Semitism. Maybe if there's no visual signs of your belief or your practice, then perhaps people won't go after people.
Okay. Anyone else, please?
Wait, they can't wear them, or they can't wear it where it's visible?
They can't, well, so here's an example. Last year at the Susan G. Komen walk in San Diego, Gabby, our granddaughter, wears a Star of David that's so small you need a magnifying glass to see it. Obviously, some man was stalking her where she's crew, and he walked up to her and said he wanted to rip off her Star of David, which had come out of her shirt, and told her she was an awful Jew. Child's 13 years old. I mean, so people, I suppose that, and the school knows about this, the 3-day handled it very well. But the reality is people are looking for signs of people's religious beliefs and wearing them. So if you don't wear it, it can't come out of your shirt and it can't be seen.
Thank you.
Is that
And
right?
What
I
if
don't
you
know.
have a tattoo? Do you have to put makeup or something over
They
it?
didn't talk about a tattoo in this letter.
Harv?
Yeah. What do you think about stories I've heard that Iran is behind much of the pro-Palestinian protests? Have you
Say
heard
this
anything
again.
about that?
Who is behind?
Iran.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, Steve.
that's some of it, but as a lot of you sent you a few articles probably a month ago, Rabbi.
Yes.
A lot of it is people placed in these institutions and funded by Qatar and other Arab and Muslim organizations. So it's not all Iran, and a lot of it that appears to be domestically fueled is all because the domestics were placed there strategically and began decades ago as part of an international plan to get to where we are.
I don't want to become that kind of a person, but we have once again fallen victim to our lack of foresight and preparation. And forget whose fault it is, though I could name names. the white nationalists, Christian nationalists, anti-Zionists, whatever, have been working for years, and now this is all part of what Harvey talked about. Working for years to put together the machinery to achieve what they are achieving today. It didn't just happen. So Harvey's talking about the funding. Yes, indeed. Yeah, but they didn't fund it last year. They funded it 10 years ago. And they funded things to create grassroots problems, and they were willing to invest in the future. And I have to tell you, they have been really effective. They have been really effective. The anti-Israel stuff on campus, we already know, was organized nationally, coordinated, and funded. These were not just groups of students who suddenly saw the light and became angry. They were trained, they were funded, they were prepared. And the outbreak of the student protests were coordinated across the country. I guess that's good for them, right? That's good for them. They did it. We can't even admit that we have a problem. Oh, I don't want to get on that soapbox again. We don't admit that we are doing a lousy job teaching our kids about the meaning of being Jewish, the connection between Judaism and Zionism, the whole thing. We have failed, and here we are confronting the fruits of our failures. Now, if you believe that I am way overstating, and lots of people do, that's fine. But in my cynical old age, I think we have succeeded in training a generation of Jewish ignoramuses. And you know, go ahead, stomp on me. That's okay. But we're paying the price. We're paying the price when we don't expect our kids to know Hebrew. Let me be very blunt. Learning Judaism in translation is fabulous. Without Hebrew, you miss some of the keys to the essence. And most of our young people are not given those keys because it's not important to us until somebody attacks. Then it's important. I'm going to stop my tirade. You know where it leads. So I want to tell you a story. Tell me a story. This past week, four of my Israeli cousins came to visit Santa Monica. The good news is that they had no plans, no programs, and said, "Here we are." I mean, I love them. They're good people. I know them. That's terrific. So Risa and I have been Risa has been programming for the cousins all week. And please do not mention that they go home tomorrow night. I'm not going to mention that. Now, during their visit, a brother of one of those cousins was in the States and came to visit all of us at the same time. He is a fabulous human being. And during the post-October 7th war, Shachaf, that's his name, was called back into the military. He has 4 kids. He's running a big business. He was called back up. Since he came back about a month ago, he has not talked about what happened when he was called up. But some of you may know that I am a persistent questioner. And so I said, so Shachaf, what did you do? I was inside. I said, great. Shachaf, what did you do? Okay, so my cousin, a commando, is a munitions expert whose skill is blowing things up. He blows things up for a living. I said to him, Shachaf, what did you do when you were in Gaza? Were you in Rafah? Yes. Oh, that's not a good thing. What were you doing? I was blowing up tunnels. And he spent 120 days military service blowing up tunnels. And I said to him, you're out now. They're going to leave you alone. You're already an old man. Are they going to leave you alone? And the answer is no. I'm going to be going back again in September for another 120 days. So I said, this was unscripted. I said, what's happened to you because of this? Is that a fair question? It's a little penetrating, but what happened to you? And then he told me a story that knocked me flat on my back. He said, I have totally re-examined my Jewish identity. I said, yeah, I remember, because at the time that I officiated at your wedding in Israel, you told me make sure not to use God in the service. You didn't want any mention of God. Okay. I made one slip. I paid the price, but mostly good. He said, but Stan, I have now rediscovered the excitement of being Jewish. This is a commando who spends his time blowing up tunnels. And I said, what do you mean by, experiencing Judaism in a different way? He said, there is no difference between Jews and Israelis. The people who came in on October 7th were not trying to kill Israelis. They were trying to kill Jews. Their goal is to wipe us out. And I just came to the conclusion that if that's the way they're going to feel, I'm just not going to be one of those who will let it happen. He goes to services a bit, and they tend to be Orthodox. His view of himself as a Jew has been incredibly strengthened. Not something I would have expected. It left me feeling amazingly good that there is some benefit that comes from all of this. Have you had experiences like that with any of your friends or colleagues or relatives where this October 7th and beyond event has changed how you view your Jewish identities? Have you had any conversations like that? Okay.
I would say, oh, I'm sorry, Risa. I would say, yes, we have a lot of conversations with the girls because that was the day of Gabby's bat mitzvah.
Right.
So
Okay.
the
Rick-
conversations are whatever, you know.
Grace?
I just wanted to correct one thing that you said.
I'm
You
glad.
said that blowing up things was Shachav's business. And that's not really what you meant. That's his job in the army. That's
Yes.
what he did in the military. He's actually one of the world's best grower of grapes. He runs a huge vineyard, and he comes to the States, to California, to Bakersfield once a year for meetings with the Worldwide Grape Growers Committee, whatever it is. And he does things with the DNA of grapes to produce new kinds of grapes. So this guy who is an explosives specialist is actually a beautiful farmer living in a moshav in a beautiful place in Israel.
How many of you would like to go to a convention hosted by vine growers?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Do you think they party?
Right. And Tamara actually came to the house with a sick grapevine that she wanted him to
You
analyze.
gotta believe this. Tamar Skenazi came at the door, knock, knock, knock. Yes, Shachaf is here. And she was holding a grape leaf from one of her vines.
And she said, "What's wrong with my baby grape?"
He had to do a house call, which was
And he told her. The other thing is, an answer to your question is yes. I think that a number of people who are among the people who are coming to services on Friday night, even though it's a limited group, which makes me sad, are there because of the war, and are coming and find it very important. And the singing of Hatikva has become important to them. And at one point during dinner with the expanded family, your granddaughter, Beth, said to me, "You know, it's very sad. I'm a senior in high school. I graduated from Broward, and my Hebrew was very, very strong. And now my Spanish is very strong. And I'm sitting around the table, and I'm sorry to say that I have lost my Hebrew. And that's wrong. And I don't know what I'm going to do." I said, "Well, you're going to college in a year. You should take Hebrew in college." And she said, "Maybe I'll have time to do that." So she also has been touched by the presence of the family and by the fact that she has been away from Browerman, and it's hard to maintain her Hebrew.
Let's ask the question directly of this group. Have any of you had any behavioral changes or serious attitudinal changes since October 7th? Has it done, and has that event directly impacted you one way or the other, Steve?
As I think I mentioned a few sessions ago, only that there's certain clothing I would not now wear in public. That in the past I wouldn't have thought twice about.
You're talking about a Magen David or
Or a Zahal t-shirt or any of those things. Or not putting my kippah on till I'm inside the synagogue grounds.
okay, thank you. Has anyone else experienced any changes? Okay, Susie. You're muted.
Okay, now I'm not, correct?
Correct.
The changes that I've noticed are all of the protests in West Los Angeles and at UCLA. Never ever do I remember such violent protests, especially at UCLA. That's number one. That's not in my exact life because I don't go there anymore, but it's something I'm aware of and I'm told. Directly in my life, I was in New York 2 weeks ago for 10 days, and mostly everybody I was with was Jewish, and it came up. I was at the film festival, the Tribeca Film Festival.
Ah, sure.
And it came up amongst the group I was with. Shall we continue to wear our Star of Davids, or should we not? And we had a discussion, and several of the people in my group left theirs at home. They didn't bring it. I felt very compelled to wear mine. Mine is very small, and do you know that when I was there, I was at a pizza place and a couple of other places, and it was noticed, but it was noticed in a positive way. I had a guy in the pizza place say to me, "You must be Jewish." And I said, "I am," in a proud way. And he said, "Are you frightened?" I said, "Actually, I'm proud." I felt that the way that he asked me was not confrontational. Things like that, when you said, is anything different since October? I'm much more aware of my Judaism than I was. I mean, I've always been aware of it, but in a different way, in a much different way. I feel good about that, actually. I feel good to be able to say that I'm Jewish and to stand up for myself.
Let me just say that I've been wearing, I don't have it on today, but wearing a dog tag, Israeli dog tag with the name of Zionism Together and all kinds of stuff, American Zionist movement, very obvious. And sometimes it sits inside my shirt and whatever. Walking on the Venice Strand boardwalk, every once in a while I will see a group of individuals wearing keffiyehs, walking as a group, Arab Palestinian headdress. And my immediate reaction is to make sure that my little dog tag is visible. So I'd pull it out and, So far, they look at me and they say, well, this old man, gonna leave him alone. You know, but that's true. Brad, what about you in the world? You live in a very important world.
I really don't know what to add. There's one thought that goes through my mind, and they used to say that the Palestinians never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity, and I'm wondering if the same thing can't be said today about the Israelis and this current government. So that troubles me.
Thank you. Thank you. How about getting a couple of other personal responses? What about it, Cindy? Have you?
Right after October 7th, I wore a t-shirt out in public, supporting it with an Israel emblem on it. And I was a little nervous and I got all positive response. I think I'm just cautious. I do have the dog tag. I don't hide it. I haven't had any occasion to feel fear, but I am cautious and aware.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Harv, what about you?
Mara mentioned the incident. We were up in Paso Robles early June having dinner with some friends, and my hearing isn't so good, so I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying at the next table. Mara heard more of it, but they used the word Jew, and the way it was used was not in a friendly manner. So we don't know, because my hearing isn't good, and Mara was a little further away, exactly what was going on, but they were people from the area as far as we could tell. So I think we're more aware of our surroundings since October 7th, if
You're more
anything.
aware. That's a very
Yeah.
good perspective. More aware. Steve?
I just want to say what was very interesting that at Thais's graduation at Santa Cruz, not the greatest environment for Jews, a couple in front of us from the South, obviously not Jewish and very conservative, their granddaughter was getting a master's and he was wearing one of the pins with the US and Israeli flags on it. Mona and I both thanked him, not knowing the other had.
How
I
did
would
he
say,
respond to your thanks?
You faded out. I couldn't hear you.
How did he respond to your thanks?
Oh, he was very appreciative. They were very nice and we didn't talk politics.
Okay. Anybody else?
yeah, I don't think, I think I'm like Cindy. I've become more aware and I'm more cautious, but I'm not hiding anything. What I did find interesting, and I don't remember who this woman was or where she came from. She must have been at something at one of the temples in Scottsdale or maybe the JCC. And she made a comment about how much more security she's seeing at like the Jewish preschools and day schools and summer camps and services, and why do we have to register to go to services and stuff like that. And I said, well, a lot of that is for security and that they know who's coming and that those places feel comfortable. But I was uncomfortable with the fact that she was disturbed or had to ask why there was so much more security now than before. And I guess it's something I've become aware of when I pull into a place. Like, where's the security? Why isn't it totally visible? Or just because of her comment to me. Yet I don't really look for extra security. I figure it's there somewhere.
Thanks, Merle. You know, it's like the story of how do you boil a frog? And it's a great little thing. They take a frog, put it in cold water, put the heat on, and keep slowly raising the heat. And then by the time the frog figures out that it's time to get out, it's too late. I think that we are entering a period when we're going to have to be uncomfortably aware that people are turning the heat up on us. And I don't know exactly what the proper response to that would be. But I am very worried. I talk to people dealing with college campuses. I am very worried about what's going to happen mid-August. This is mid-July. Mid-August, the campuses will be open. And there is going to be a continued pressure on the Jewish students, and trouble with faculty and trouble with the presidents of universities. And in some ways, we're going to get blamed for this trouble. After all, if Jews weren't there, this wouldn't be happening. I am not positive about the future of American society. And I'm certainly not positive about where the Western world is headed at this point. Though I do think I will adopt the wife of the Prime Minister of England, invite her to my home, and that'll be very lovely, do Shabbos with her. But not only is the Jewish community in the United States and in the world not keeping pace with the growth of world population, but we're not holding on to effectively educating the people we have. And nobody cares enough to scream. And that's the hardest part of all. Anything else on this topic? Anything else? Merle?
I think where my concern is the girls are starting camp on Sunday at Wilshire Boulevard's camps, where it's all Jewish. And the day they come home on August 4th, and on August 5th, they start public schools. What's going to happen on these school campuses? The rest of their lives with dance, nobody says anything, nobody gets involved, nobody looks for you. But I admit that I'm concerned about that first day of school in a public school as to how people are going to act, Jewish or not Jewish.
Ray
And
asked whether
yeah.
we should have whether Wilshire should announce unscripted sessions, maybe at the end of some other program, to budget the last 15 minutes for people to have a chance to talk like we talk. You know, Ray, I am not a population counter. I don't do it. I don't. Someone says, how many people are coming to your current events class? You know, it's a good group. It's fine. Then, deep down inside my dusky little mind is, well, here we have this incredible conversation about really important subjects, And in our congregation, only 15, 20, by the way, of the very best, but 15 or 20 are signing up. Why? The overall impulse is not Jews trying to deepen their Jewish awareness. It just isn't. I'm a little bit confused, but a week ago, I had a very interesting meeting with someone who heads up one of the major community structures in Los Angeles. Not only was I invited to the meeting, they paid for the lunch. Okay. And we talked about how are we educating our children? How are we educating our adults? How are we making people active in the world to make their synagogue membership more than just a membership? You know that in most cases, synagogue-based adult education classes run for 3 to 6 weeks, and in that period of time, they will make you an expert. Okay, Mara, if you want specialty and you want to really know about Musar, we got a 6-week course, and at the end of the 6-week course, you will know Musar. That's so fraudulent. That is so fraudulent. And you know, other kinds of courses. So I innocently said, where is excellence in this product? And the person who had invited me for lunch fell silent, because truth, excellence in Jewish education is not a priority. And I so worry in our world, how are we preparing our kids? How are we preparing ourselves to face what could be in the next few months a very dangerous time for the Jewish people in America? Depending on what goes on in Israel, depending on what goes on with the US elections, depending on what goes on with the campuses, we're sitting here very comfortably. And I am telling you, I'm worried. I'm going to have to stop here. Is that Brad? Are you raising your hand?
Yeah.
Are you waving at me?
No, I'm just raising my hand for a real quick comment. I think we do a horrible job of teaching our kids what we believe as Jews. I mean, it other than gefilte fish and a lox and a bagel, if you ask them what do we believe as Jews, I think, you don't get very far. That's point number one. And as to the complacency, I think that part of that answer is it's not that long ago where we were convinced that this was the golden age of Jews in the United States. I mean, think of all the Jews represented in Congress. and in government at the highest levels. So it's, that has lulled us into a sense of complacency. And it coming out of that, to come out of that is requires a major mind shift. And I don't know if we're ready for that.
Thank you. Susie, last comment.
Lots of frustration for myself and a lot of people that I know. Maybe some of you feel the same way. I don't feel apathy, and I don't feel as though I'm not involved with what's going on with anti-Semitism. I feel that we are not organized. Other than protesting, which I don't want to do, I feel we're not organized in any way here in the US to counter anti-Semitism. There's really no way we can get to the presidents of the universities. I just don't know. I'm frustrated. I feel like all I can do is say how much compassion I have for being Jewish at this particular time in my life. But I feel like I'm at a standstill. Does anybody else feel that way, that you don't know what to do? I mean, who do we write letters to? Whose door do we knock on? I mean, when there's an election, you can get involved with the campaign. You can go door to door. You can make telephone calls and whatever. I just don't know what to do.
Thank you. All right, Steve, quick, please.
I just want to say, Susie, there are lots of people to write. I know the dean of my law school. I know the presidents of my alma maters. I write Congress people regularly, and I write these people. I mean, sometimes I get good answers, sometimes I get nothing. But if everybody does that, it really does have an impact. I mean, I think that one example, and it's not because of me, but AOC has changed her tune and moved a lot along the scale. Probably not enough, but she's undoubtedly reacting to what her constituents and others are telling her about her stand on Jews and anti-Semitism.
Will you email me her connection, please?
AOC, you can't. You just have to send it to her at Congress if you're not a constituent.
Right.
But I'm saying I don't think I affect her. I'm not a constituent, but when I write the presidents of my alma maters that I know, the deans of my law school, and you can go online, and I write our senators and congressmen all the time about everything from tax policy to anti-Semitism to how people are voting in Congress to what we're doing in the UN. I write people in government dozens of letters a year, I would say.
Is it possible, Rabbi, to get Steve Einstein, who writes postcards and letters all the time, he and his wife, to come to a class, I mean, virtually, obviously, and tell us how to do this?
Beautiful.
And Mona writes letters and send, camera, points things out when Mona sees things in the LA Times. She's on the camera board. Sometimes her letters have been selected as great examples about how to write the LA Times, the New York Times, when she sees the newspapers, whenever she sees a horrible, reporting.
Susie, you get newsletters from WRJ that have action alerts, and all you do is click on the action alert. It gives you a letter. It has it all set up. You click on it and it goes to your personal Congress people. Every single week you receive that in the High Line from WRJ. And
also from the RAC.
Also from, I was just going to say, you also receive it from a Religious Action Center. There's every single week you receive these things automatically because you're a member of WRJ. You just have to read and click where it says action. Take action. That's all it takes.
Thank you.
Thank you all, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good week, and
Bye.
let's see how the Republican convention's going to go. I am so anxious to see that. I'm going to be attached to the television. I will be. That'll be so much fun. I love those things. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
so
great
much.
week, everyone.
Bye, everyone.